event for Pride Month in 2024. And I think it's a great way to sort of close it out with an interview with the Greens. The Greens were in 2019 Outstanding Virginians nominated or awarded by Equality Virginia. Do you have your award?
That's our award. Where's the camera?
Oh, it doesn't want to show.
It blurs it though, doesn't it?
What's that?
It doesn't want to show. They yeah, for all their work that they've done for Equality Virginia. And so you also read the bio, but I think we should start out with you all doing just a little introduction of yourselves, like telling us, what a little history, where you were born, that kind of stuff, and then also like how long you've been married and that kind of thing. Who wants to start?
Cool.
I'll start.
Yeah, I'll start. So Ray Green and Kathy Green, we have been married for 44 years. We're cis straight allies and have been active in the LGBT community since 2004.
20 years.
For about 20 years. And we started out our journey with this in Tucson, Arizona, where we were living at the time. So we became involved because
What did you tell in your background?
Oh.
You're supposed to be telling who we are.
Telling them who we are. Okay.
Married couple.
Married couple. Yeah.
Married couple. Yeah.
So I grew up in Southwest Arkansas, went to the United States Naval Academy, graduated in 1980. And during that time, I met my dear wife and we began dating and became engaged and married since 1980, just after graduation from the Naval Academy.
Wow. And Kathy?
I'm Kathy, and my educational background is in nursing, but I will be honest that most of my career was stay-at-home momming, and that worked for us. We were happy, and it was good. I mean, I have done some nursing, and my favorite thing in the world is our kids and grandkids. We have 2 biological children, 2 chosen children, and we have 4 grandbabies.
That's awesome. Yay, that's exciting. So I guess to me, the first question that jumps to mind when I meet a couple like yourselves who are such big advocates for the community is like, why did you think that was important? Like, how did you get into that?
Marriage. I think we have always had gay neighbors, gay friends, co-workers, like in our world, they were gay. We weren't. It was like never an issue. After the 2004 election, I remember reading about marriage amendments. They were amending state constitutions to say marriage could only be between a man and a woman. And I had never crossed my mind that gay and lesbian couples can't marry, and I didn't know what it meant. And so there was an article in our local paper, this was Tucson, Arizona, that there would be a meeting at the local gay community center with information about the marriage amendment, the proposal. And so we went to that meeting, and the rest is history. We learned a lot that night, and joined the committee and joined the team that was fighting the amendment. And I think this is funny. The first night that we went, we had never been in the gay community center before. They thought we were spies from the opposition. This cute little great couple.
We walk in, white, cis, straight, and holding hands, our marriage privilege splashing all over the place. So, who
they told us later
would
they thought we were spies.
Yeah, they thought we were spies for the opposition as that campaign started. But through the course of that campaign, we got to know so many people. And an interesting thing, at least from an ally perspective, too, is as we were kind of getting involved in the campaign and getting training from media and that kind of a thing, we wrote our coming out stories as allies also. And I think that's an important thing for allies to consider as you become more deeply involved in your advocacy and your work with the community. Well, what does it mean to you personally to be an ally of the community? And so that's one of the things that we sort of stumbled across as we were doing our work in Tucson, Arizona for the marriage campaign.
It was a lot of education. We, like Ray mentioned, we had to learn media and, how to answer questions appropriately from the media. And we actually like attended a class they called LGBT 101, so that we would get language correct and definitions correct. Sexual orientation is not gender identity. And so, these are things that, the privileged straight cis couple needed to learn. And then we tabled any place that would let us in the door. And so it was, I feel like as a long married couple, we were able to reach an audience that maybe the lesbian on the table or the gay man on the table, that we could reach, married people and explain that, gay people are not a threat to us. We tabled events, we spoke at a lot of panels at colleges. And I am happy to say that we defeated the marriage amendment in 2006 in Tucson, Arizona. We don't get a lot of credit for that because we lost 2 years later, because they got so much outside money. It was a red state, and we, boots on the ground, we defeated an amendment in Arizona. I think they were surprised that.
Yeah, I'm definitely surprised.
It surprised even national folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I hear people say, well, why is marriage so important? Like, they can, get a contract signed and you have, the same rights. I mean, what would you say to people like that?
Yeah, so I would say, contracts can be broken or determined to be null, but and I guess the same could be said of marriage. But when Kathy and I got married in 1980, she got instant rights as my next of kin.
Instant.
My mother and my father were no longer at the top of that heap. It was Kathy instantly. And there are so many unspoken, sort of unenumerated rights that go along with marriage. And, one example that Kathy frequently cites is, just imagine all the time that you're doing business travel and you or even vacation and you go sign up for a rental car. If you want a second driver on that and they're not your next of kin, that costs you money every time. And so you can imagine traveling as a longtime couple that is not married. What does that cost build up over time? And that's just one example of many, many, many of the benefits of marriage. And so, I often hear gay friends say, we never imagined that to be in our future, that we would ever have the capability to be married. And now you actually have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's marriage. In the process, we learned that marriage is a public good. When a couple gets married, they're basically telling society, I'll look after my partner. We're going to be a family unit. It's a stabilizing thing in society. So to have, I just think of so many couples we know that have been together longer than we have, especially 20 years ago when we were working on marriage. We have marriage today. I hope it won't be threatened. I think of couples that were together longer than we were with none of the protections that we had. They stayed in their relationships with no financial protection. Society was a threat, and they stayed together. Like, having those folks join the institution of marriage was really a good thing for marriage. If anything, it strengthens this. I like being married. I'm not trying to tell anyone they need to be married, do what you want. But I think marriage has been good for us. I think it's a good, like I said, they call it a public good because it's a stabilizing thing. So I just, I worry about a recent Supreme Court decision that one of the justices said that Obergefell was a bad decision. I worry that there could be threats to marriage equality.
Yeah. I mean, and I think probably because you were in the military, Ray, it comes with just even more, really, because you're talking about where your spouse is overseas, and like you talked a little bit about, or you told me a story about like what would happen when you come home. Like Kathy would be there to meet you, and
So I mentioned the Naval Academy. I was commissioned and served for 6 years, and I was in a flight squadron that deployed overseas. And typical when you come back from deployment, there are families lined up along the flight line to see you come in and land and get off the plane, and they approach you directly. Kisses and hugs and all of those family things. And serving under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and having colleagues, having fellow officers, fellow squadron mates return home, and there's no one even allowed inside the gates of the base, much less on the flight line, to be able to meet your loved one. And I've had Naval Academy classmates and other alum tell us stories of how they would just walk off of the ship, walk off of the flight line, and go out the gates to a hotel or a coffee shop or some other place to say, "Hey, I'm home, and we can have our reunion now. We can't have it in public. We can't have that celebration of families being home and together again." So I think that's just really a chilling course of events that we witnessed.
My privilege, like my hetero, my straight privilege, still to this day punches me in the face sometime. I experience it. Never. Well, I mean, to be honest, Ray served before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Ray served when everyone was closeted. And so he knows, we know that he had gay, classmates and shipmates and everything, but no one was out.
No.
Like, no one could be out, back in the 80s. So it never entered my mind that, that single, flight officer, he just would leave the gathering and then go off base. Like, oh God, like you find out 20 years later, he was meeting his beloved in the parking lot of a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Like I just I learned so every day about my privilege, that we have enjoyed for so long, and that good loving couples had to hide. We're definitely making progress.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But
we are definitely making progress, for sure. Can you imagine like having this conversation 20 years ago or 30 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ray, you talked about the Naval Academy. I mean, you got involved in their sort of LGBT group there. How'd that come about?
This was many years later, since my graduation, and so I guess about the time that we really became active in the LGBTQ community, we were aware that I had classmates and that there were midshipmen who are gay. It's just that, it's a matter of statistics. Even if people are not out, that the people exist. And I was looking for an opportunity to support my alma mater, and I went looking for an organization that might be open to having a straight cis white man join an organization to support LGBTQ people who are at the Naval Academy. And I discovered that, there was an organization pretty young at the time, USNA Out, and I joined and became a part of that group. And one of the things that happens with this group of alumni is to support directly the midshipmen who are gay and need their support to make it through the Naval Academy and all of those experiences. But it's so this was certainly during the time of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and very closeted. And so we went to a graduation dinner to honor the midshipmen who were graduating and going out to the fleet to their assignments. And it was really super secret. It was not on campus. It was held in some private home in the greater Annapolis area. And we signed up, we paid for our tickets to go there. And it's so secret that the location is not divulged to you until the day of the event. And midshipmen come to the event, but they're not in uniform. It's just, it happened to be really very
active duty
very
alumni couldn't
secret.
wear uniforms,
right.
and super secret. Don't Ask, Don't Tell got reversed. And I look at the academy today, they have an on-campus group.
Yeah.
What was it, Prism?
It's
No.
not Prism, it's
One of those rings.
Spectrum. Yeah.
They have an actual, like, the gay and lesbian midshipmen are out, and the gay and lesbian alumni can be out. And we have trans officers serving in the fleet. And since we typically attend this annual dinner, and we meet these, they're adults, but I'm calling them kids. We meet these kids from the class of 18 and 20, and they're so smart, and they got appointments to the Naval Academy, and they've spent 4 years studying brainiac engineering, and we're so lucky to have these kids in the service. And I just think, oh my God, 20 years ago they would have been closeted or kicked out. Like, I think of all the veterans
Right.
our age that got discharged.
And we hear so many stories of that.
We educate these people, and we pay all that money to train them, and they serve our nation for 15 years, 13 years, 17 years, and get kicked out before retirement because they were found to be a lesbian or a gay man. And so I'm those are all those things that my straight cis privilege, I wasn't paying attention and didn't realize that we were losing so many talented people.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, it's bad for everyone, including the government, because they invested a lot into these people, and they're really smart. And now you're going to let someone who speaks Arabic go because they're gay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
horrible.
I'm happy to see that we're beyond that, these, I keep calling them kids, these young men and women
I call them
officers,
kids
like that they can serve and love who they love and be who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when you get to a certain age, they're kids. If you're below 30.
I can't believe we're letting the babies go to college.
So I think another challenge for, well, anyone, it could be an LGBT person, but I think particularly for cis straight people is that sometimes you hear jokes from people that are sort of anti-gay, and it's like, so what do you do to when that happens? I mean, I'm sure it's happened.
I have a story that still chokes me up. I speak up. I'm born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Like, blunt is how I am, and so I challenge things like that. But our daughter is a 2005 graduate of Arizona State University, and she attended on they call it the Leadership Scholarship Program, which was leaders, coming in, leaders being trained to be leaders. So she had a mentor who was, I don't know, like a year or two ahead of her, a young girl named Katie. So Katie was her mentor in this program. So Katie was a young leader. And at the end of the year, they would invite the families and they, congratulate the seniors on their way out and all this kind of thing. And we were at one of those events, and these are all, smart, young leadership scholarship students. And Katie repeatedly kept saying, "Oh, that's so gay." Like that just kept coming out of her mouth. And so it's, what is this, like 2007 or something like that, So I got her aside. I didn't say it in front of the people there. And I told her, I said, "Kate, you're about to graduate and go out into the world." And I said, "That's so gay. We're just not talking like that anymore. It's 2007 or 8 or whatever it was." I said, "Look around this room. Look at how many gay men and lesbian, look at all the people in this room. You can't, like, we're not using gay as a pejorative anymore, And so she thanked me, for not embarrassing her. And she said she's going to work on it and everything like that. Life goes on. She reached out to me like 10 years later, found me through my daughter, and she became a school teacher. She majored in education, became a school teacher, and became the faculty moderator for their Gay Straight Alliance. Like, this is a girl
Wow.
that grew up with a religious background. And so, like, I think That's So Gay was like something she knew from her life. But she thanked me. And I'm sure there were other things in her, but like, oh my God, like, who knew that? And I think of like the ripple effect of the kids she probably helped, coming up in her school experience. And, so when you talk about I'm going to speak up if you make ethnic jokes and gay LGBT jokes. And, I'm going to speak up because of that experience with this young girl.
That's a great story. I love that one.
Go Sundowns.
Go. I have ASU roots in my, or I'm sorry, U of A roots in my family, so I can't say that.
No pity for the kitty.
Yeah, there you go. So I guess what the other thing that strikes me is, like, you both grew up in conservative families. I mean, Ray, you were in the South.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how do you, like, what was it about your life that made you like the kind of person that would go, "Hey, you know what? I need to support this group of people who don't have rights that I have." Like, how does that happen?
So I think that, there just becomes sort of a turning point if you're open to it, where you have a realization. Because I'll be quite honest with you, being growing up in the South, I grew up with a lot of prejudice, and when we say that, hate is taught, it absolutely is. It's indoctrinated into so many of us. And I was the way that I was. It's how I was raised as a kid and indoctrinated. But going to the Naval Academy and having such a diverse experience of people all around me. I have classmates from all 50 states and some foreign countries as well, oddly enough. But I've kept in touch with a lot of them, and it's just it's sort of a pivotal experience. And I have to say that aha moment for me really didn't happen until much later in life. And I think that it was really our kind of experience in Tucson, Arizona, where we got so deeply involved in that political campaign. But I mean, there were just a number of turning points. I think moving away from home is, changing a venue, just being open to travel and being open to learning, and those kinds of things. I'm not saying that people who are kind of anchored to home are bad people. I I think that there's just an experience that
Our experience.
happens, our own experience that happens with us moving around to different parts of the states and just having some other world experiences. Really moving to Tucson sort of opened our hearts to a lot of things. And I think that's a turning point that happened for us. And as we became open to that, we were so well embraced by the gay community. Kathy mentioned, you know, we walked for the first time ever, we walked into a gay community center and we just fell in and felt like we had family there. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
What do you
it was a
think,
good
Kathy?
experience, and I grew up Irish Catholic in Philadelphia, and really, like, we were the stereotype, you know, an Irish Catholic family. I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, Catholic college, you know, and I think it was like part of my DNA. Like that was our church, but it was also like our social life and our community, you know, like it's a row house neighborhood of other Catholic families. And I think that as an adult, like I guess I knew I didn't agree with so many things I heard, but I still went to church. And you know, because that was just what we did. But then as adults, we grew away from identifying as Catholic, from going to church and all that kind of stuff. I think for me, that was a big part of it. I mean, and I don't, like, you know, if Catholic folks are listening to me on this thing, like that's my personal experience and my journey. And I think that moving away, like I wonder if I still lived in Philly, surrounded by would I have ever gone into the gay community center? I don't know. But I, you know, my experience, I think leaving Philly, you know, and for Ray leaving Ashdown, Arkansas, like it just opened us up to other people, other experiences.
I mean, it does kind of just reinforce, you know, I grew up in Wisconsin, and so I have a lot of friends from high school who haven't left that town.
Yeah.
And they don't have the same perspective that I do, obviously.
Yes. Right.
And I guess it would be a challenge. Maybe it's, you know, like, how do you bring a different perspective to them, I guess. I think maybe part of it is just me being out, even on Facebook, for them to know, like, hey, wow, okay, yeah, I've known her since first grade, and you know,
Actually, I do know someone who's lesbian.
Yeah, it's harder to hate someone that you know, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me, well, of Harvey Milk's thing, which was what was it? Come out wherever you are. Like it was, for him, it was all really a lot about just visibility and the fact that when after you have coffee with someone, it's harder to hate them.